Again, to have this man grace this platform, Dennis Skinner.
Anyway, it's a bit different from speaking here than speaking in the Palace of Varieties with Cameron and his red face in front of me. Little does he know, we've all got red faces on here today, but his red face is all about lying. And so I shout from that bench when I don't get called, I shout, he's going red again. And then he tries to bluff it, and he can't help it, and he does go red. It'd have gone red last week if I'd have got in. I had shot up to catch the Speaker's eye about 20 times, but I never made it. And I've got a wonderful question to him. You know how Cameron likes photo opportunities, and he gets his photo in every paper and on every television screen. I think he could get one even better, and I was going to ask him on Wednesday, have you got any prison visits lined up to see Andy Coulson? But I didn't get in. But he might save for another day. I'm also carrying a small message from the Better Together campaign in Scotland, who said, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could talk to the Durham Gala on Saturday about trade unionists sticking together beyond the border. And that's the message I give to you straight from the Together campaign. There's been all this talk about ballot percentages. For trade unionists, that is. It's a good job they don't start in Parliament. The quorum is only 40. 40 out of 650. So for all you people that are marking this down, that's about 6% turnout for any piece of legislation to go through the House of Commons. That's all you got to get. And in the House of Lords, it's nil, because nobody's been elected. That's why we should abolish it. And I'm not going there, so don't worry. They're not buying me off. I have to tell Dave, I didn't actually make a decision myself about Parliament. I was called upon by the Derbyshire miners to fight a man that left the Tory party. He worked on the BBC. He was like the Paxman of his day. And he was going round Bolsover, winning friends and influencing people. And they said, Dennis, get on the bloody parliamentary panel and stop the bastard. Which I did. So you might never have heard of him. He's dead now. He tried for seats as SDP. He tried for seats for the Labour Party. And now he's gone. Well, that's the reason I went to Parliament. And when you're in the miners' union, you have to remember that you're part of a collective, aren't you? There shouldn't be any prima donnas. And that's why last Thursday, when all those people you've heard from today were striking, as is their right, I say loud and clear, if any Labour MP is asked the question, are strikes necessary? Yes, they are. Working people haven't got a great deal of power. They never had. Most of the power is in the hands of all those that are at the top of the Sunday Times list, and the idea that somehow or other they can't use the right to strike is a nonsense. So I just want to say to you, that strike was necessary, but I think more than that. I wish it had took place in 1984, when we should have had a second front. And if we'd had a second front to support the miners, we would have got home and dry. Remember that in the future, because we might be up against the same problems. That 84 strike, if it had been won, the most honourable strike in the trade union history, where a man at 60 was prepared to surrender his mortgage and the roof over his head for a miner at 16 in another coalfield that he'd never met. That is honour, and never forget it. And if we'd have won that battle, we would have changed the course of history. Thatcher would never have got round to selling off the public utilities. You remember the story? Let's have a share owning democracy, she said. And you can all buy shares, and you can own water and energy. The truth is, after 20 years, they're all abroad. Every single one of them. Britain doesn't own any of those public utilities. That's what happened to the share-owning democracy, and that's why it's important never to listen to these Tories that trot out all these different ideas. There's going to be one or maybe two pieces of legislation next week. And I'll tell you now, if there's a vote on tapping into everybody's computer in Britain, I'm voting against. So if there's any whips on this platform, they already know. Yes, that strike changed the course of history, because the next thing was that Murdoch decided to switch his operations to whopping. You all know the story. That would not have happened had the miners won that strike. And the net result is now 80% of all the newspapers in Britain are right-wing. And that's why we always need a big crowd at Durham, at the Gala meeting, in order to get our message across. And that's why all the trade unions have spoke as they have done today. She got rid of the manufacturing base. Almost everything in sight. And now we're paying the penalty. And she introduced deregulation against the banks. So when they talk about how did the recession start, it started when Thatcher built the casino economy in 1987, before the Tories kicked her out like a dog in the night. There's another thing we've got to sort out as well in our movement, and that is the mantra of balancing the books. That mantra began with Ronald Reagan way back in America. The private sector never balanced the books. So why should the public sector be demanded every single day that they have to balance the books? It's a nonsense. If Mike Ashley wants to build another Sports Direct with 1,300 people on 0-hour contracts, do you think he borrows £4 billion out of his own safe? No, he doesn't. He borrows it out of somebody else's. That's how capitalism works. And yet somehow or other, we're being told that the local authorities must balance the books, that any Labour government should balance the books. It's a mantra that has to be destroyed if we are to make any progress. And so during those 2 decades, is it any wonder, with people making money hand over fist with the shares and all the rest of it, that we had this vile abuse of children at the same time? The people in power thought they could do anything they liked. That's what society was in that era. So when you're worried about Jimmy Savile and Rolf Harris and maybe some politicians that have not yet been disclosed, just remember, it was a free and easy time when everything goes. That's what capitalism was doing then. They felt they could do anything they liked. So Labour's got to formulate a manifesto. And unfortunately, I'll not be at the Clause 5 meeting. They got rid of me. I've been knocked off before. I've been knocked off 3 times in 36 years. And I hope I live long enough to get back again. Anyway, I don't feel half as bad as Andy Murray. I don't think he could be as sure as getting the Wimbledon title again as me getting back. And in any case, I can't be anywhere near as bad as all those Brazilians. Life throws a lot of things at you, and you have to stand up. And as a trade unionist, you have to remember you fight back again and again. And that's what we need, that kind of spirit, the 1945 spirit, starting here in Durham, to get an agenda that can beat the Tories so they don't focus on individuals. The reason why they keep talking about Miliband is because we hadn't got the dynamic policies necessary. That's why the speakers you meet today, the teachers, the GMB, the railwaymen, have all told you what's needed. We all know what's necessary, and that's why when you have the Clause 5 meeting before the election, remember what we need to do. First of all, we put an end to the wage freeze when a Labour government gets in. Secondly, we want a living wage right across the length and breadth of Britain. Next, we've got to introduce free collective bargaining in all those areas of the private sector where it doesn't exist at the present time. And get rid of zero-hour contracts. And abolish those agencies that are owned by people like Mike Ashley at Sports Direct, where a woman gave birth to a child on New Year's Day because she didn't get any maternity pay, any maternity grant. That's how evil that system is, and we've got to get rid of it. We've also got to put an end to sequestration of trade union funds. I don't think it's been mentioned today, but that is one big handicap against workers as opposed to the owners who don't suffer from that same handicap. We've also got to make sure that we introduce proper, decent public ownership. You've heard about taking rail back. I endorse it completely. It's absolutely necessary. Why should we be putting money into Richard Branson's pocket when we know for a fact that we could be making money for the taxpayer, the pensioner, the nurses, and all the people who need the money? And when people say to me nationalisation, I've been in Parliament long enough to remember Harold Wilson nationalised aerospace with a majority of one. So it can be done. and we have to start the process at the Clause 5 meeting. We've got to end the bedroom tax, and that's a no-brainer. We have to introduce a massive house building programme like we did after the end of the Second World War, when every country was skint. How did we do all these things after 1945? We did what we could do then. We borrowed the money. That's what we did. We built a National Health Service. We introduced pensions for the first time. We built council houses, homes for heroes. That's what we did. So the idea that you can't do anything because of austerity is the biggest load of lies I've ever heard. That Tory front bench on Millionaires Row wouldn't recognise the truth if it was sprayed on their eyeballs. We've got to abolish Atos, Cabida, G4S. We've got to introduce a Robin Hood tax that'll frighten the life out of the people in the City of London. Let's do it. Let's do it. And then we can direct it straight to the National Health Service. Every penny of that tax, the people would respond to that if they knew that's where the money was going. So, lots of things to do and lots of things to say. All I say to you is, this big meeting inspires me. I think Cameron didn't know about this place when he talked about the big society. Because I've been addressing it since 1978. And that bloody idiot who went to Eton, educated beyond his intelligence, didn't know it existed in Durham. Yes. It is inspiring, and that's why I feel as I do. I know that when I come back here, there'll be a warm reception. I know it'll not be picked up by the press and the BBC and by Andrew Neil, who's had more hair transplants than Michael Jackson. I know that. But what I do know is this. There are two people that have left us, Tony Benn and Bob Crow. And if they were here, they'd be cheering to the echo. That's what Durham means to all of us. Never let the spirit die. Let's start building the manifesto here in Durham. The Durham Manifesto for Tony Benn and Bob Crow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very kindly for that tremendous reception of a magnificent speech. I've heard a lot of speeches, but there's not many as good as that what I've heard from this particular platform. It's been a miss of me a few earlier in the proceedings.